Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So this is actually an important couple of weeks that we have coming up here. On one hand, we have Photon Hypernova and Amazing Defenders coming out here in the TCG over the next couple of weeks. And while Amazing Defenders isn't going to do too much in terms of meta impact, Photon Hypernova is going to cause some significant shifts in the current format. At the same time, Cyberstorm Access is finally legal over in the OCG, and so players are testing out the new cards and determining new strategies, which could definitely give us a bit of an insight into what our format will look like in a few months, assuming that tier limits get hit on our upcoming ban list. Let's get started. Alright, so kicking things off, we have Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. Now with Kashtira coming out here in February in the TCG, players are definitely worried about getting all of their zones locked and being unable to play the game at all. Now that deck basically plays all Xyz monsters in the extra deck, and they don't really have any ways to out being locked by Ibli, so a lot of the time, especially in game 1, this card can win the game on its own. It's also worth noting that Ibli allows you to play around a lot of different things, including Nibiru, Infinite Impermanence, and Cyframe Gear Gamma. I think that overall, there's actually quite a few different decks that can use Ibli, but it would probably just be pure Sprite mostly, though apparently there are some people talking about a tier limit build that would be able to abuse Ibli as well. With those two being the two decks to beat of the current format, it's only natural that players look for new techs to beat the upcoming Kashtira strategy, and this seems to be one of the ways that a lot of players are looking to do it. Now, Ibli has two different printings. We have the original secret rares from Flames of Destruction, which are pretty up there. They're around $15 for the Unlimiteds and then $20 for the First Eds. And then for the Ultras, those are around $6 to $7 right now as well. Whenever we've seen Ibli in the past, I believe it's just been as a one-of, so I wouldn't expect this card to move too high moving forward. However, I also don't really see anywhere that it could be reprinted coming up anytime soon, so if you want to tech this card into your deck next month, you might be better off picking it up now. The next card that we're going to take a look at here is actually related to the Ibli we just talked about. It is Lingaribo. So this is a pretty simple card requiring a single level 4 or lower Cyberse monster to make. It has an effect on the field where you contribute it to negate a trap effect, which I guess might be useful against something like Infinite Impermanence. However, this card is actually being sided into the extra deck in Kashtira as a way for players to get out of being locked by Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. Even though you would like to have all 15 extra deck spots available to use, I think it's definitely better to go down to 13 or 14 to allow yourself to play the game. What's interesting to note is that some players are actually looking at siding 2 copies of Lingaribo, since some decks might choose to tech in a Kashtira Unicorn, which could look at your opponent's extra deck and rip a card out of it. If they see only one Lingaribo, they might choose that to rip out and then Ibli lock you anyways, which is forcing some players to consider running 2 copies of this card. Fortunately, Lingaribo is still relatively cheap. The Ultras are only a couple of dollars now. Those used to be like 50 cents or so, but they've slowly gone up over time. Luckily though, this card does have a super rare reprint from the 2021 Megatins, and those are still accessible for only 50 cents or so. Either way, you guys will definitely want to look at grabbing at least a couple of supers if you're planning to play Kashtira this upcoming format, while the card is still dirt cheap, because depending on how good Kashtira is this upcoming format, you might be needing copies of this for yourself, and we might see a lot of other players looking for it as well. Next up, let's talk about the Bestial Lubellion, the big boss monster for the Bestial archetype. This is a pretty scary card. You can send it from your hand to the graveyard to search for another bestial monster, and then it can special summon itself out of the graveyard by tributing a level 6 or higher Dragon Dark monster. It also lets you place a branded continuous spell or trap card from your deck directly onto your side of the field. I feel like right now when we talk about Bestials, we only really see them as a series of hand traps. They're used in basically every deck as a way to counter Ishizu tier limits, which are the best deck of the format, but we just see them as bodies and disruptions as opposed to a coherent engine. However, in the OCG, now that tier limits have been hit, Bestials are still around and they can actually do some pretty cool things. With Baldrake coming out in Photon Hypernova, and then a new Synchro and synergy with the new Fallen of Albaz lore cards in Cyberstorm Access, Bestials are currently really strong over in the OCG, where Lubellion is actually seeing play. Because of this, Lubellion has rebounded back up in terms of price. In Darkwing Blast, much more of the set is focused around supers like Magnemite and Druisworm, and then ultras like Unicorn and Kashtira Fenrir, to the point where a lot of the secrets are really cheap. However, the Bestial Lubellion is one of the only secret rares with a price that is actually going upwards. Originally, this card was around $80 or so at Sneak, but we've seen it trending downwards towards the $50 mark recently. However, the card has now bounced back up again to the $65 to $70 mark, and that's within the first week or so of seeing how Cyberstorm Access has influenced the game over in the OCG. Just a reminder that this card should get a reprint in the 2023 Megatins, but players will still be drawn to playing the cards as soon as the set drops here, so expect the card to continue to be quite expensive. The next one here is kind of random, it's Cyberstein. So kind of interesting, it's a level 2 machine monster with a crazy effect, allowing you to pay 5,000 life points to special summon any fusion monster from out of your deck. I think that right away we can all think of a few cards where you can try to win the game off of just the one thing, so either like Naturia Exteria or the Last Warrior from Another Planet. I think that at one point, I did think this might be a cool card to see all the time in Sprite since it's a level 2, but you have to remember that you can't use this effect if you're under Gigantic Sprite's effect. However, I've seen some people talking about this card in a couple of random things. One person said like Spriggan's Sprite, another one said Valence. I'm not too sure. I didn't actually see any lists, I just saw these things running around on Facebook. Apparently it's a thing people are talking about right now, but I'm not 100% sure, so please take that with a grain of salt. Anyways, it's a cool card that is actually quite old and has a wild effect. It would be really cool to see someone like top a YCS or something with this in their list. Anyways, the card has a few different printings, obviously. Most of us average players, and even a lot of the high-end ones, probably won't even see a Jump Ultra Cyberstein around anymore. However, the two notable printings that we have access to are the Secret Rare from Battles of Legend, which is currently about $8, and then the Supers, which are just $2 right now. I remember the Secrets being only $1 or $2 when they first came out, so if you have Hollow Bulk lying around at home, this is a card that is worth noting and digging up so that you can offload them. Okay, so this is one that has been really under the radar, but Spiritual Water Art Aoi is a really cool trap card. You have to tribute a water monster, but then you get to look at your opponent's hand and send one card that you find there to the graveyard. So this card is really similar to the Appointer of the Red Lotus, a side deck card that is now limited, and I think it's really cool to see. Obviously, this is a neg1 since you're losing 2 cards to rip one from your opponent, but this can potentially be really impactful. Knowing what interruptions they have, or what combo pieces you need to prioritize stopping, or ripping a key board breaker like Dark Ruler No More or Evenly Matched out of your opponent's hand, these are all really big benefits that can instantly put you in a position to win the game. Now, for a lot of the last while, we haven't really had too many water decks where you could use this card. Sprites want to keep Totally Awesome up, and Tearlaments want Rukalos to stay on the field. Now, however, in Photon Hypernova, we have the new Gishki cards coming to the TCG. These things are really awesome. We have Grim, who's like a new Deep Sea Diva, they have a Rhoda, and they have a new Ritual monster that's a Monster Negate, so a lot of really cool stuff. On top of that, Gishki are all water monsters as well, so they're a deck that might actually be able to abuse this card, siding it in when going first in order to gain a huge advantage. Fortunately, the card does have quite a few printings. Most of them are common and you can still grab them for under a quarter. However, the card has one super rare printing, a really old version from back in Astral Pack 2. For right now, the card is only $2 to $3, but I think that if you're planning on playing Gishki, you might just want to consider picking this card up. If Gishkis are able to do something this format, especially after Tearlaments get hit, I can see Aoi being a worthwhile side deck card, with the super rares moving up to the $8 to $10 range. Next up, Herald of Pure Light is a card that has actually been hyped up a couple of times over the last year. As a generic rank 2 Xyz monster, this card was of course initially hyped because of Sprite, but Sprites don't generally use this card at all. Pure Light allows you to detach a material from it in order to add a monster from your graveyard to your hand, and then put a card from your hand back into the deck. Simple effect, and I know that technically this card doesn't gain you any advantage, which is probably why Sprite doesn't really care too much for it. However, this card is actually much more important in Gishki Sprite. With Gishki, you can use Pure Light to add Gishki Grim back to your hand, a new level 2 monster that, on top of being a Deep Sea Diva, can be treated as the whole tribute for a ritual summon of a water ritual monster, regardless of that monster's level. Oddly enough, this card has only one printing back in Judgment of the Light, which came out like in 2013. That's right guys, Boojins came out almost 10 years ago. Man, I really feel old now, but yeah, so Pure Light wasn't reprinted in the Megatins from that year either, so it just has the one super rare printing. Right now this card is only around $8, still pretty affordable, since I think it isn't on everyone's radar quite yet. I think we should expect the card to be reprinted at some point within the next few months, right? It's just a bit difficult to see where exactly that would be outside of something like an OTS tournament pack. If you're really big on Gishki and want to play them, then go ahead and keep your one copy for yourself to use. But other than that, I think it's smart to move your other copies while the card is relatively high and while other players will actually be looking for this card with the release of the Gishki cards in Photon Hypernova. And finally, the last card I want to take a look at for today is Dino Wrestler Pancreatops, specifically the secret rare version. So I feel like Pancreatops is a card that has been pretty underappreciated. I feel like it got limited to 1 kind of out of nowhere, but after that everyone wanted it back at 3. To be fair, at the time Pancreatops was game breaking as this 2600 attack point body that could summon itself out for free, and it had a quick effect to pop any card on the field at all. I think it was pretty nuts. Now, I don't know why, but apparently secret rare Pancreatops are trending up over the last couple of weeks. They were down at $3 to $4, but out of nowhere, they've doubled in price and they're now $8 to $9 a piece. I think it's Yassine that made a video talking about this card and how it's not really good at all in the context of today's format. With that, perhaps there are some players considering the possibility of Pancreatops going from 1 to 2 or even 3 on the next ban list. The card is almost completely outclassed by Kashtira Fenrir, which has an easier summoning condition and can get rid of cards while keeping itself on the field. Now that being said, if the card did go to 3, it would definitely go up in price, and the secret rare is one of the first printings that would be targeted. Of course, the card has a lot of lower rarity printings, and we didn't see any shifts in the prices of the ultras or rares, or even the collector's rares. This one is kind of up to you guys, and if you think that there's a chance that Pancreatops ends up getting peeled off the ban list or not. Alright guys, that is everything we have for today. I think you guys will definitely want to keep an eye on OCG lists for the next week or two. There's a lot of stuff in Cyberstorm Access that will tell us how the game might be different in just a few months. So if you guys want to have an idea of what cards you should maybe look at picking up or what strategies might be good, that's definitely the route that I would be taking. But after that, we should come back to looking at our game here in the TCG, as we should have the Photon Hypernova reveals starting in just a week or so. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure that you let us know by slamming that thumbs up button. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today, and let me know what other cards are trending on the market as well. Also, if you guys haven't already, do make sure that you guys slam that subscribe button. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.